All right, good afternoon, everybody. We're going to get started. For those that don't know me, my name is Jeff Scarda. I'm a maple syrup producer from Wisconsin. Here, obviously, I'm from SASPI, doing the shirt, and what you see on the slide. We're going to talk just sugar bush monitoring in general, and overall the value of sugar bush monitoring. Specific questions on monitoring, I'll give you my perspective of SASPI, but really I'm trying not to be biased towards what we do at SASPI. Overall, a little bit of background about myself. So I was born and raised in Wisconsin on a small dairy farm in Wisconsin. Overall, blessed to have that opportunity. Growing up, baling hay, picking rocks, milking cows, that was really my childhood. Just blessed to have that type of childhood. Went to school in Madison as electrical engineering, got a degree in electrical engineering, been in a corporate world the last 14, 15 years, now actually like 17 years, applying the electrical engineering knowledge to that corporate setting, but I grew up on a dairy farm. Just very different industries, stuck behind a monitor all day long in a manufacturing facility, very much enjoy what I do, but for the same reasons we all here love producing maple syrup. For me, it's getting back to the farm I grew up on, doing things I love. Doing maple syrup at least a few months out of the year. Been doing that for 12, 15 years now. Started with bags and buckets like many of us here, moved on to tubing systems, moved on to 5/16 tubing systems, guzzlers, and now a true high vac system for the last 5 to 6 years. As soon as we went into high vac systems and did 5/16 tubing, mechanical releasers, vacuum pumps, we all faced the exact same problems why you're all here today. Those days in the mornings when that moisture trap tripped, I lost vacuum, just didn't know what was happening in the sugar bush. Just those are painful days. I spent all that time and energy and money installing all that tubing system in the woods. I bought a nice electric releaser or mechanical releaser, this 3 horsepower vacuum pump, and on one of the biggest days that we have for gathering sap, of course, that's the day we have the issue. I didn't know about it, and that's really the reason why we have monitoring systems. I think back to one particular day. I was at work at my day job during this time. I look outside, out the beautiful windows we have in our corporate office. It's beautiful, sunny, about 40 degrees. We just tapped the trees that last weekend, thinking it's going to be a great day. So I blew off the meetings at the end of the day, probably pissed off my boss and my co-workers, just blowing off the meeting. I get home, my wife has made a nice dinner that day, and I was like, sorry honey, I gotta get to the farm. We hustle out to the farm, I get out there, I live about 30 miles away from where the farm is at, and sure enough, that tank is only half full. Because in the morning, that moisture trap tripped, I didn't know it, and that day, it's a painful day. Once I got there, not only did I piss off my boss, pissed off my wife, I got to the farm and my tank's only half full. So that was 6 years ago when I said there's got to be something out there. I hunted and searched. What existed didn't really meet my needs. I didn't have Wi-Fi. Was Wi-Fi in the woods? I didn't have power. At that time we were running mechanical releasers and a vacuum line out to the woods. And so really that's when I ventured down the road. First, just build something just for myself. To monitor the most critical right at your main collection point. What's happening at my releaser? What's vacuuming at my releaser? To me, I think of monitoring systems as like the hierarchy of needs, almost like water, food. What do you need to survive? For efficiency in the maple operation, what makes you the most profitable or saves you the most time, the most hassle when you're monitoring? Number one is vacuum at your releaser. Your vacuum pump shut off, your moisture trap tripped, your mechanical releaser is causing problems. If you don't know you don't have vacuum at your releaser, it's a bad day. Number two is probably tank level. It's a slower moving thing. Whether it's needing to know right now or an hour from now, knowing how full your tank is the number two need. It's those days where the tank is overflowing. Well, was it overflowing for 5 minutes? Was it overflowing for 4 hours? All of that is sap wasted on the ground. So in my mind, number one is vacuum. Number two is what is my tank level right at my releaser. because we're monitoring a few things already, temperature is certainly a bonus. It's not something you quickly respond to. Maybe you go turn on a pump, turn off a pump, but knowing temperature is certainly providing that additional value, knowing that right at your main collection point. So, within sugar bush monitoring, just knowing those three things, you can put any percentage you want to it that you think is reasonable. 50, 70% of the value of monitoring systems is just knowing those three most important things. What's vacuum, what's tank level, what's temperature, right at my main collection point. From there, now it's the name of the game is, well, how do we maximize our yield? Guys, before I talk about that, let's talk about those three, the vacuum. So the piece I missed is that day when I pissed off the wife, pissed off my coworkers, I ran out there early to find that issue. Not only is it an issue for that day, but what do I think about the rest of the season? Did it happen again? Did it happen again and again and again? For the rest of the season, we ran the evaporator till midnight that, another night, and in my mind it was still 35, 36 degrees. The sap is probably still flowing. Did I have another issue? And so I just spent all day long, many hours running the evaporator. Now I gotta run out there again, because I'm not gonna sleep very well, not knowing what's happening in the sugar bush. So that's the next piece of just, not only are you saving sap, maximizing your harvest by knowing when those issues happen, it's peace of mind that you can rest at night always knowing what's happening in the sugar bush just by pulling out your phone and you know what's going on. And saving trips back and forth. Overall, it's how do we improve your lives as sugar makers by having those monitoring systems. So to me, that's the core value of monitoring, is knowing those things at your releaser. Over the last couple of years, we've added sensor node capability. So like the next level of, well, how do we get more value out of our monitoring system? It's knowing what's happening, like where are my leaks throughout my system. So by share a couple. So here's my own personal sugar bush. That's weird. Let me get that right. Jump forward a few slides. So what you see here is my own sugar bush mapped out in Onyx. So if anybody wants to have tubing systems, highly recommend mapping it out in Onyx. That really helps you pinpoint, understand your woods, understand terrain. They got a lot of impressive tool set within Onyx to map out your woods. So if you have a tubing system, highly recommended. The next name of the game with sensing and sugar bush monitoring is helping pinpoint where your leaks are in your system. Every single leak, you're missing out not only a little bit of less vacuum, that's certainly valuable to know where my leaks are to correct them, but the biggest thing is while it starts freezing. It's all about the freeze and thaw period. So when it goes from 40 degrees, 38, 36, 35, when it's starting to freeze, just the physics of air and vacuum, it's that rapid expansion of air entering the vacuum system that causes that isolation of a cold spot in your main line. That'll cause that main line to freeze early under a pretty small leak. That is really the value you get out of sensor nodes throughout your woods, or end of mainline sensors I should say, is to help you when you have the big leak, a branch falls down, you can always close valves and help pinpoint where that is, but you'll never find, or it's pretty hard to find all the small leaks you have in your system without sensors at the end of every main line. For that particular item, is looking at the data. So anybody with any monitoring system, it's most important to look at that data during the freeze and thaw cycle. The main line that lost vacuum first, like you see here, 26 inches at the releaser, that's pretty good. Most times I'm up to 28. Here is 23 inches at the end of that main line. This particular issue, I had a spout that pulled out, so I knew right where to go to find that issue. A lot of other examples we have is, I have 28 at the releaser. All the other main lines are at 28 inches. I'm very happy with that. But a main line that has a leak while the temperature's dropping down to 36, that entire main line is going to freeze up. Not only those nights where the sap just keeps running all night long, well, that main line, it froze up, it didn't get any vacuum, nothing's flowing through that. So you missed out on all that sap of all the taps on that branch. So that's really a lot of the value of monitoring, knowing the vacuum at the end of the main line, not necessarily what's happening now, but what happened during the last freeze and thaw. So that branch completely frozen. Now you know the next day, if I have a spare hour the next day, that's the line we're gonna walk down to hunt down and find that leak. Because you know it's there, you spend a little bit closer attention rather than spending an hour or 2 hours walking all of my systems trying to find the big leak. You know to spend one concentrated hour down this one main line to find that micro leak that's out there. Once you find that leak, you're really optimizing the system for the next time it freezes up. You're not, that whole main line, that whole branch will stay under vacuum the entire time. So you're maximizing more sap during those periods. In my own personal woods, when I installed, had these systems, it was 4, maybe 5 of those that I never knew existed before. Having the right data and seeing that on those main lines helped me pinpoint a leaky saddle here, maybe a T I had to replace here, another leaky saddle in this other location. And so it's those, every one you find, you get more sap because they didn't freeze up, and from going from maybe 26.5 inches, I find a leak, now the whole system is up a 1/4 inch. Now the whole system is up again another 1/4 inch or 1/2 inch, as you really find all of those micro leaks. As you get higher and higher vacuum, you get more and more of those leaks that seem to show up, and you keep on tweaking, finding more and more leaks. Every single one you find, you correct. Instead of being at 26, maybe you're at 27, 27.5, even 28 inches in vacuum throughout your entire sugar bush, just by having the right data. As of today, most of the producers, most of the systems out there, maybe they have like a freeze report that's incredibly valuable to help you as a producer to know where to spend your time. I think some of the other companies do something similar for freeze reports. That's ultimately where we get the value, not just so it's what's happening right now, but what happened yesterday, the last 24 hours. So back to my day job, right? I'm a electrical engineer, data systems engineer for a corporate 100 company, a Fortune 100 company, manufacturing products that everybody in this room uses each and every day. A lot of that day job is how do we collect data from those manufacturing assets, and how do we use that data to make our machine operators' lives easier by solving problems, less times that those machines stop, higher or less waste, higher machine speeds we can run on those assets. Overall, how do we collect data from all those manufacturing assets, deliver analytical tools so that we can make the proper decisions, solve the right problems? What we're doing now in the sugar bush is applying that same methodology to the maple syrup operation. How do we collect the right data out of our sugar bush to help you as producers solve problems, make decisions? A couple examples like that. So we covered the value of sugar bush monitoring is what's happening at the end of those main lines, not just right now, but over the last 12 hours, 24 hours, during the last freeze and thaw. Well, we're collecting all of that data, and how do we apply the right analytics to that data set to help you as a producer to know right where your mainline leaks are. Rather than you having to browse through all that data, what we're working towards is give every mainline, call it a score, an efficiency score, or maybe a 1 through 5, or maybe it's a yield percentage, 0 to 100%. So then at any point in time, I can look at, well, what's the efficiency of every single mainline, and I just pull open the app every morning, and I know this is my best performing line, this is my worst performing line. And so obviously, any spare time you have that day, the worst performing line is the one to walk down. So that's just one concept of where we're headed, with more of given the background of data analytics, how do we help people solve problems, make decisions, and really the corporate manufacturing environment, applying that same knowledge here to sugar bush operations. How do we use data from our systems to help you as producers solve problems, make decisions, make life easier by knowing what's happening, make your operation more profitable by correcting all those small leaks. Ultimately, that's satisfy what we do. With overall where we see the monitoring, Sugarbush monitoring evolving over the next several years of how do we best leverage that data to help you as producers solve those problems. Other ideas, concepts that we're evaluating, would love to hear feedback on these as well. So like this, aerial view is great, right? It helps bring to life what's happening in my sugar bush by almost like a bird's eye view and seeing all my sensors, rather than just a table of data. For me, it's like, how do we visualize the data in a way that just makes sense for everybody? This, in my opinion, is a great way that it makes sense. Where my vacuum is best, where my vacuum is worst. As of today, this is called a snapshot in time. This is what's happening right now. So when a spout pulled out, maybe a tree fell, you got a big leak somewhere, now you know right where to go. It's pretty obvious where to go. But remember what I said earlier, it's all about freeze and thaw. So what we're developing next is, I think of this as, well, what if we could play back in time what happened? So I think of this as, well, what if that was a YouTube video and you had a play button on the bottom of the screen and a scroll bar? And so at any point in time, you could jump back the last 24 hours, even last week if you wanted to, hit play, and it'll kind of play back the data, animate the page, along with temperature on the page as well, so you can kind of play back the data in this kind of view to really bring to life a little bit of the data from the systems. That's where I see more and more advancement in this. Not only how do we collect the data, show you what's happening now, but how do we help you go from data to, call it insight, and how to best leverage your time to solve your issues in the woods. That's just other ways we're continuing to improve both our platform, and I know the others are doing something similar.
So you're saying that you look backwards, so let's say last night at 9 o'clock, it was 32 degrees and they all read that. And then at 10 o'clock, the second line down now is down to 20 inches of vacuum, and then the line down here is down to 8 inches of vacuum.
Yep.
And then at 11 o'clock, that's down to 0. You know that line froze first.
Yeah.
So you know that there's a buckle in that main line somewhere.
It could be a low spot. That's
Okay.
definitely one possibility of a low spot. Most times it's about a leaky saddle or a lateral that has a leak on it. It's as that normal air enters the vacuum system, that rapid expansion of air, just the call it physics of that process, causes rapid cooling of that spot. So a main line will freeze up at about 34, even 36 degrees. The bigger the leak, the higher the temperature is going to freeze. So I look at the system as what happened when the temperature is starting to drop. Did anything freeze up before 32 degrees? If something froze up before 32 degrees, there is a leak on that line somewhere. Every single time, guaranteed. Otherwise it's not going to freeze at above 32. So it's how do we, especially have a larger and larger operations. This is I think I have maybe 10 sensors. Some got 2, 4, 6, 8, 12, 14 main lines. It's not huge, but as you have more and more main lines, it's that much more data. And it's hard to, if you have, call it 25, 50 main lines, it's hard to then look at all that data and know where to go. That's where we're trying to help meet that need of, and help you interpret that data to know where to go, where your opportunities are in your sugar bush. We're talking, a lot of this is more that advanced features that we're continuing to build out, but this is really where monitoring systems shine, is finding these smaller leaks to really optimize your system. So if you get back to where I started, the core need of any monitoring system is what's vacuum at my releaser, what's tank level, my main tank level. Those two things, you're missing out on a lot of sap in one day. Those are painful days. From that point forward, now it's how do we maximize vacuum 24/7 on our system so you know right where to go. The second part, more of this data analytics part, is how do we help you as a producer not spend a ton of time browsing that data, jumping back and forth, how do we just tell you where to go? That's what we're doing more and more analytics for.
How do these communicate back to the sugar bush? Are they line of sight? Are they point to point? Are they
Yeah.
on a wire?
Yeah, no, great question. So various technologies are out there, like other producers or other equipment manufacturers. They will have a main call it a gateway, a main PC, but mostly in the sugar house, and then they'll use basically nodes to get to where your woods is. A lot of times those systems are built for the sugar house is on the same property as the rest of the woods, so they don't have to go very far. Some producers will do like, for those other systems, we'll do like repeaters down the road to get where the woods is. We took a little different approach, right? So my personal operation, I live a half an hour from the farm I grew up on. The farm I grew up on is now our sugar house essentially. And then our woods is another 2-3 miles away. So it wasn't really practical for me to go by the central gateway and then repeaters down the road. Could I have? Probably. Costly and just not as practical. So that's where specifically SASPI, to speak for us, it's a sensor hub that sits right in the woods, right at your main collection tank, and that's cellular based. So that sends the data, it collects the vacuum tank level temperature, collects that data every 5 minutes, sends the data out over the cellular network, and then anywhere you have internet, most people are right on their phone, you can see that. That way we don't really have that need for that central, brains of the operation. The brains of the operation is both the hub that digests most of that information, also acts as a gateway for sensor nodes through the woods, sends that data out, and then you can see it on your phone anywhere you want. So whether you're at work, at home, in the sugar bush, driving around, you always have in the palm of your hand what's happening in the sugar bush. Others are, like I said, most of them are a gateway. I'm pretty sure H2O now has a device that's put a SIM card in it. You'd have to check with H2O or the other guys about what the data plans are. But there's various options for other ones. Some guys I know, like with CDL, Lepier, H2O, they'll do like a MiFi hotspot. Go to AT&T or T-Mobile, configure a MiFi hotspot to put that in the woods. But that's on you to configure, right? It's on you to get the data plan and the hassle to configure all that. Versus our approach was, how do we make it simple? And we handle all that complexity for you. At SASPI, all you do is turn the thing on. And we handle the whole cellular complexity for you.
So each node has a cellular ability, or the nodes communicate with other nodes down to your hub,
Correct.
which has a cellular.
Correct. Only the hub has cellular.
Only the hub.
The nodes talk to almost like a walkie-talkie radio.
Yep.
The nodes talk to the main hub. The hub sends that out. I think we're all doing something similar of call it a mesh network or a repeater network that nodes can talk to each other. For the largest producers out there, CDL, Lepier, H2O, they're all true mesh, if you will, where every node can talk to any other node. For us, at least for the producers, we're trying to best meet the needs of. Like if you have 50,000 taps, you probably want the full mesh. If you have a few thousand taps, even 10,000 taps, 1 or 2, maybe 3 strategic repeaters in the system. For us, especially here in the Midwest, it's getting up and over that one ridge. Or maybe I'm trying to get across an 80 and I gotta put one repeater halfway there. That's the approach we took. It's a little simpler, a little more cost effective to make 1 or 2 end-of-line systems a repeater and let it service the rest of the woods. Good question.
How long is that data stored? Like, do I have it forever, or does it max out at a certain point where I can't look back?
That's a great question. In the web app, as of today, you can look back 2 weeks. A new feature we have basically developed, just gotta add the button to the web app, is for you to export the data. And you can export the data for, we have it for the last 3 years, or actually 4 years. So we have all that data. And back to that data analytics piece, something we've also, so we know where the device is, every device out there. We know where it is based on the cell tower it's connected to. Well, what's valuable? What are we all looking at every single day during sugaring season? It's the weather, right? We're looking at that weather app every single day.
Every hour.
I think I have 5 apps. I have 5 different weather apps, and I'm always checking the weather. Hey, when do we tap? When do we not? And that's all the games we're playing. And is it gonna flow tomorrow or not? Well, we know the weather based on the cell tower the device is connected to, and so we have limited built out today in this, but this is where we continue to evolve, create new features, add more value to you as the producer of how do we put that weather data to use. One particular example is the tank level. Like tank level, we all do the math in our head. How fast is that tank filling? It's 50% now. It's going about 10% per hour, so we probably have 5 hours before it fills. Just as an example, we do that simple math for you and provide a predicted future tank level in the app. So you just click the button and it draws the line in the future. So hey, that's gonna fill up at 10 o'clock tonight. I better go pump it before I go to sleep. As of today, that doesn't take into account the future weather forecast, but that's where we're continuing to develop and add more features. Let's look at the future weather forecast based on what was the SAT flow yesterday, last week, what's the weather right now, what's the SAT flow right now, what's our future weather forecast, and can we provide a better predicted future tank level based on the weather forecast? Or what else can we do with that weather forecast? You talked about the historical data, and I see that piece as, we collect all of that data. You can go back 2 years and download all of that weather, SAT flow, temperature, all of that information. We have available, we provide to you as an export for your device, and this is all where we're applying more and more of that, call it data analytics, to help you as a producer solve problems, make decisions, be more efficient, is where we're going to use this data more and more as we continue to build out more and more features.
One feature that really I like and what sold me on is I have a similar setup like of Woods that's 35 minutes away, but he lives 8 minutes down the road from there. I can connect his phone to that and have alerts sent out to where he can just run down there real quick.
Yeah.
I think it's 3 people you can put on?
Yeah, for the SASPI system, so they all will have some capability for alerts. I think the other ones are either an app you download and a notification to your phone or a text alert. As of SASPI today, we can text up to 3 phone numbers, so you can claim multiple devices to one account. So if you have 3 or 4 Woods, it's a hub in every single Woods is typical. Many times those are miles apart, so a dedicated hub per Woods, and then you can configure up to 3 phone numbers. If you want more, it's easy to add 3 phone numbers that upon any alert condition. So loss of vacuum, full tank level, empty tank level. New this year is temperature alerts. So if having your pump house, is my pump house freezing, send you a text alert. And then you can, once any device has one of those alert conditions, it'll send that information up to 3 phone numbers. Just send you the text alert. A couple, also new features we're playing with this year is, a couple key customers, the guys in the Woods, they don't have a smartphone. It's a hired help, and they also, maybe have limited service in the Woods. SASPI works fine in the Woods because it's the technology we use, but you as the producer has some but limited service. You can send SASPI a text message, and it'll send you a text message back of what those readings are. So that helps a little bit with, if you don't have the best reception, to load that page to see it. All you need is the ability to text it, and it'll text you back. We've also are, playing with interest level for this or not, but you can actually physically make a voice call to the system, and it'll call you back. So probably hard to hear here. Yeah, it's gonna be impossible to hear. Okay. We tried that earlier. So it's like reading what you got as a text message, reading it back to you as a voice call. For certain producers out there, maybe they have just a landline, and like how do we still, or maybe your hired help is just a landline. How do we help still empower that person with the right data? Texting is one, voice call is another. Those are 2 things we're developing as well.
Do you have any data logging capability in your hub where you go just plug your phone into it and download it into a?
It's a great question. As of today, we don't, but it's certainly a feature we can add. Yeah, it's got some memory capacity there. I guess to a limited extent. So where you don't have power, obviously you don't want to. You want to keep those readings, and it's a kind of a balance between sleeping and waking, to preserve that battery life. So what we do similar to that is when a normal sleep mode or even a deep, cold weather deep sleep is what we call it, we'll take readings every 5 minutes. So the device wakes up for a very brief moment of time, takes the readings, falls right back asleep. It stores that information, and then another 5 minutes it does the same thing. Another 5 minutes it'll do the same thing. 20 minutes later, it'll take readings, turn the cellular on, publish all the data out, and then fall back asleep. So it's kind of locally storing. I think what you're asking for is build that more out, and then Bluetooth to your phone is maybe where we want to head. Yep. Is it limited reception in the woods, or what's the scenario? Just curiosity.
I'm just curiosity. I mean, I did all this stuff for oil wells, so.
Okay.
I'm just
Yeah.
curious how you're.
All the hardware is capable. For us, it's like, how do we meet the first fundamental need? You know, hierarchy of needs, the first fundamental need was what is tank level, what is vacuum, what is temperature, right on my releaser. The next hierarchy of needs is vacuum system throughout the woods. That's add vacuum sensors throughout the woods. Where I see this going next is producers that, you know, maybe the sensor hub doesn't have cellular connectivity. It's pretty rare. We have literally hundreds of devices out there. We're less than 10 where it didn't connect where it needed to. But there's some remote areas. Is like, well, could you just set up a system and have it talk to a local phone right there next to you via Bluetooth, or when I'm walking through the woods, if you don't have cell service where you're at in the woods, maybe you're hunting down leaks and you don't see, you can't see in the system until you're back at the sugar house. It's, you know, kind of limiting a little bit. Still useful, don't get me wrong, still useful, might be limiting, but if you could carry a device that talk to your phone, that talk to the network, then you can see it. That's probably what we'll end up developing. We'll see when that fits in the timeline. Every year, we basically, given all the feedback, talking to the producers, coming to events like this, we have our development list, and okay, what do we want to bite off every year based on what people are asking for, and that's just been our, you know, how we've grown as a company, how we think as building out new functionality based on people's needs. How do we best service those?
A small solar panel hooked to the battery can greatly extend it too.
So yeah, we have a solar panel, powering options. I hate to talk specific SASPI, but the USB cable that comes with it. Most people, at least what I did the first couple of years, I'm punching holes in the trees with a DeWalt battery or a DeWalt drill. DeWalt, Milwaukee, Makita, they all make this little adapter. It's that battery to a USB adapter. So just take that to the woods, give it a full charge. We also have alligator clips for maybe you're a fisherman, you got a deep cycle battery, you can bring that to the woods and then you don't gotta worry about recharging. And finally, we do have solar panel as well. For the hub, that's the cellular device that does consume a little bit of battery. Leveraging that sleep mode that I talked about earlier, our hub can go 2, even 4 weeks in that normal sleep mode. In like a cold weather deep sleep, it can go like 6 months on its internal battery. It's not as frequent updates, so I generally say 2 to 4 weeks, because that gives you data every 20 minutes and gives you a data point every 5 minutes. For most sugar makers, that's reasonable. That's quick enough. And then in an always-on mode, whether you have it powered or you have it always just in that mode, it'll last 7 to 10 days. So much more than just your phone that'll last a day. It'll go 7 days, always on. The benefit there, you know, if you have power, you might as well leave it plugged in and always on. If you don't have power, the benefit is taking readings on demand. So not only what happened 5 minutes ago or yesterday, I'm leak checking what's happening right now. Or maybe my releaser's hanging up, I can hit a button right on the app and see exactly what's happening now. We've also developed, I call burst mode. So instead of every 5 minutes, especially when you're leak checking, I wanna know, I don't wanna wait. I'm an impatient, lazy guy. I don't wanna wait. I wanna know right now. And so you put it in burst mode, then it sends data every minute from every node out there, every vacuum reading. So then when I'm walking the woods, as I'm going to the woods, I'll flip it into burst mode, I'll see the data, I'll come correct some, I'll leak here, I'll leak there, and I don't have to wait 5 minutes for the next reading. It's every minute you get that information. It'll go into burst mode for 1 hour, and then go back to whatever mode it was before. You can flip it to burst mode as often as you want. For us, it's just flipping it back, just conserves data a little bit, and conserves battery.
Is there a startup time every time you turn it off at night? Say you do kill power and you go back, is there a startup time?
That's a great
for
question.
connection?
So if it's like on a sensor hub, most times if it's like a generator run on a generator, I typically just leave it always on all the time. Let it charge the next morning. The beauty of having it plugged into the generator. Let's say the generator turned off middle of the day and you didn't know it. It'll send you a text alert for loss of power. So that way you know right away. You don't have to wait until your vacuum drops before you get your text alert. For other scenarios, I forgot what to say there. Yeah, loss of power is the main reason. I personally leave mine in always on all the time. If I'm gonna freeze up for 2-3 days, I might as well flip it back into like a normal sleep mode. And think about the device as every 5 minutes, it's waking up, taking readings, falling asleep. Waking up, taking readings, falling asleep. If you tell it, I want you always on, you basically gotta wait till the next publish, once it turns on cellular, it pushes the data out, it then asks, hey, what mode does he want me in? Flip to that mode, and then stay in that mode from that point forward. So when people are leveraging these sleep modes, when you don't have power, that's kind of one strategy is, I'm frozen up for 2-3 days, I'm gonna flip it to a sleep mode. Once I'm getting, starting to thaw out, maybe that morning as I have my cup of coffee, I'll flip it back to whatever mode I want. I wait up to 20 minutes before it's in that mode. But pretty quick responsive.
What levels and tiers are there of it? Like, I got the very simple and, why don't you go through your models, I guess?
Yeah, so for the sensor hub, the starting point monitors the most critical right at your main releaser. So vacuum, tank level, temperature. Some producers, well, it's a few hundred taps, that really is the core need. In the future, they could always add nodes, we could always upgrade the hub, but our sensor hub is essentially $9.95 to get started. That monitors those critical things: vacuum, tank level, temperature, cellular connectivity, text messaging. All the main features you want to monitor right at the main collection point is $9.95. Some add-on options. One is a relay on-off. So instead of running out there to turn on my pump and turn off my pump, we have a relay module that you can control right from your phone to turn a pump on and off.
And that hooks to the VFD?
So this is essentially our sensor hub that monitors the most critical vacuum, tank level, temperature. That on-off control is optional, cellular connected, and text messages. So we have two different options for the relay on-off. I'd say the more common is the basic 2 independent relays. It's more universal. Whether you have a VFD you can wire into, just like any thermostat, or maybe you have a solenoid valve to open and close. Maybe you have just a cross-the-line starter, a 3 horsepower motor. You just want to flip it on and off. The relay module can do any of those. And we've provided turnkey kits as well for like, hey, I have a 3 horsepower or 5 horsepower motor. I want to start and stop it. I don't have that hardware. We've done motor starter kits as well. That it's basically you hit the start button and it's pulling in a magnetic contactor for those producers. So that's sensor hub is kind of our core offering. $9.95 base price, and then $100 extra for the relay on and off. $100 extra for it to talk to nodes. For us, that's more of a la carte way to provide something as cost effective as possible for the producers that just want that most critical right at the main collection point, but yet fully featured for those producers that want the relay on off and want additional nodes in their woods.
How much does a node cost then to
Yeah,
add?
a node is anywhere, so we have 6 different options for nodes. A node is anywhere from a single port that monitors 1 main line. A dual port node can monitor 2 main lines. Basically put the node in the middle, run dry, dedicated 5/16 to dedicated saddles at the end of 2 main lines. That's a 2 port, with a 3 port, and even a 4 port. And most of the CDL, H2O, LaPierre, they all have 1, 2, I think most of them have a 3, some might have a 4. So very similar sort of setup. So for us, it's anywhere from his current retail price is $375 for 1 port. 4 port is $595. So think of it $150 per main line for a 4 port node. A lot of that cost savings is You already buy the enclosure, the antenna, the solar panel, the battery, the controller. The only difference is additional sensor on the inside. So that's why it's just more cost effective with more ports. And that's particularly why we did the 3 and 4 port, to help you as producers make this as affordable and, you know, something you can cost justify as well by having more ports, just a little more economical to cover all your main lines with 3 and 4 port nodes. Another common question is, how far can you run that 5/16ths from your node to your end of your main line? So this is an extreme case, definitely not recommended. But the very first year or second year we had hubs, we didn't have nodes yet. Producer had the releaser, in the sugar bush. They were pumping to the road. They were pumping, I think it was about 1,000 feet, just over 1,000 feet. He was desperate to monitor both because his tank was a little undersized. He always had issues with his releaser. And so he was desperate to monitor both. We only had the hub. And so he put the hub at the road, ran 1,000 feet of 5/16ths all the way back to the releaser. So can you run a long ways? You certainly can. I wouldn't say it's recommended or preference. It'll read accurately. There's no air movement through it. It's a static line, so there's no loss. It's gonna read the right value. It's just, what's practical. Running 1,000 feet, 5/16ths, it's a long, long ways to go. Most producers are running a double or a triple or a quad. If you have mainline space every, call it 100 feet, maybe it's a triple and then running both ways to each one. Certain producers, certain customers we have, they'll have a ridge running right through the middle of their sugar bush, and they'll have main lines running up both sides. When that scenario, you get a lot of main lines pretty close together, so you might as well use the 4-port node. At least for us, I think a few different variations here. I think H2O is a double A or maybe a triple or D-size battery. CDL, I believe, uses a solar panel. I am not sure if Lapierre is a solar panel. We have a solar panel on ours, so the nodes throughout the season they're kind of internally charging that battery. Because we're not true mesh, most of ours are less energy intensive, if you will, and so the single battery is rechargeable on the inside. It would last 8, even 12 months without the solar panel. That's an end node, would last that far. The solar panel is more of a convenience factor. So throughout the season, it's keeping it charged. The intent is not to take them in and pull the cover off and recharge every one. That solar panel is just doing that for you. I personally left my own in the sugar bush the last 2 years. It's been rock solid, no issues at all. We intend the recommendation in the future to be leave them in the woods. That's one less day you got to worry about setting it up and taking them down. We did want to go a few years with that being left in the woods before that becomes the recommendation. But that is what we're testing. That's where we're headed down. That's why we have the solar panel on there as well.
What's the straight line of sight distance between devices?
Yeah, great question. So, if it's true line of sight, we can go miles, like multiple miles. In like perfect scenarios, line of sight down the road, we can go more than a mile, even 2 miles I've tested. I typically say a quarter mile up to a half mile straight through this typical sugar bush. So with the train, a little bit of underbrush, through a typical sugar bush, a quarter mile up to a half mile between a hub and its first node. The biggest thing that affects range is terrain. Dirt, earth. That's going to knock down that RF radio a little bit. So if you're trying to go through a hill, that's where it's going to be less. That's primarily the scenario where we develop the repeater functionality. And so for us, for most of the Midwest producers, most of our customers, whether you're a couple hundred taps, a few thousand, 5,000, even 10,000 taps, it's getting up and over that one ridge. Or maybe I'm sloping up and then it starts flattening off. It's getting up and over that. So you can configure any single node to be a repeater, and you can have 2 or 3 repeaters in a system to kind of double, even triple that range. For us, that's been meeting most of our customers' needs, at least this area of the market we're trying to meet. As I said earlier, I personally have 1,500 taps. Nothing against the big 3, CDL, H2O, Lapierre. They all make good equipment. They really do. They built their equipment for the largest producers out there. You have 50,000 taps, go buy their equipment. We're probably not the right fit for you. but yet we're providing a pretty darn cost-effective solution for those, producers like most people in this room. A few hundred taps, several thousand taps. That's really who we built that for, and that one or two repeaters keeps it a little more cost-effective, a little bit more simple than this full-on mesh, complexity. That's why we went the route we did.
So when it goes into the deep sleep, does it tell all the field devices to sort of stand by?
It does. So there's really two different sleep modes. I guess there's really three. There's the normal sleep mode where only the hub is basically not turning on cellular. So it'll only turn on cellular every 20 minutes. That's when the hub is in its sleep mode. Then we have what's called like a cold weather deep sleep. Instead of every 5 minutes, the whole system wakes up and sends data normally. In a cold weather deep sleep, it's every 20 minutes. So think about about a quarter of the less battery and a quarter of the less data. You get a data point every 20 minutes. That's the cold weather deep sleep. New this year, we added off-season. So off-season mode, like all summer long, all fall long. Yeah, it's good if it keeps talking. I don't really need the data. I think we did it every hour. Hey, the whole system wakes up every hour, sends all its data, falls back asleep for the next hour. That's how we did that.
So are you providing the cost of the cellular, or are we?
Yeah, specifically for SaaSPi, we're about simple and affordable. Both of those mean, like, why have you hassle with SIM card activation, deactivation, data plan, what carrier to go to, all of that hassle. So that simple piece is we do that for you. All you do is bring it to the Sugar Bush, turn the thing on. It'll then connect to the cellular network, start sending out the data. So there is no, it's that simple. Bring it to the woods, turn the thing on. The first season is included with the hardware purchase. Future seasons is just $50 per season. So we activate them all, the whole fleet of devices, every January, deactivate them all in early May. Because we have so many devices out there, it's a lot easier just to do that as a fleet, all the same day, all the same time, and then deactivate them all. That just simplifies that whole process, and that affordable piece too. If you each individually had to do that, well, it's a lot of hassle, a lot of individual cost to figure that out. So that's that affordable piece of just $50. We work with all three, primarily AT&T and T-Mobile are our two primary carriers. Verizon, I refer to as like a fallback carrier. Out of the hundreds of devices we have out there, of the hubs, hundreds of devices of just the hubs, we've only had less than 10 where they didn't connect where they needed to. And those scenarios is why we added Verizon this upcoming season. So like, if a customer says, hey, I tried it, just didn't connect, we then flip on Verizon, and in some cases, then it does connect, just because that additional overlap between carriers.
When did you say you turn them on and off the cellular?
We can do it anytime, so if certain customers want to turn them on early, or even leave them on all year, because maybe they want to use it for something else. Based on those usage, we just work with those customers to do it. We typically do it the first week of January, so a week ago we flipped on the switch for all the devices out there, and then we typically turn them off end of May, or early May. Most producers from, we're far like north of Duluth, well into Canada, so early part of May, they're nearly everyone's done by then. And we always monitor, is anybody pulling vacuum yet, to say when do we deactivate them. Good question.
Are the devices, when you buy them, if they disappear for some odd reason,
Good question.
do they, I'm not saying anybody would do this, but somewhere they show up. If they show up with somebody else's system, can you tell that those
Yeah.
don't belong there?
Yep. So with nodes, I think of it as like a family. The hub is the parent, the nodes are the children. The parent needs to know who the children are for it to talk to. Hey, these are the nodes in your family. You're allowed to talk to these guys. So if somebody would take a node and then try to use it in their system, it wouldn't even communicate because the hub is not paired with the hub, if you will. So that's how one way we do it. And every device is claimed to an account. So if you claimed it to your account and it just magically disappeared because someone has sticky fingers, they can't use it. They wouldn't be able to claim it.
Can you track it?
We don't have GPS on it to track it down to the exact location. We'll know what cell tower it's connected to, and I have yet to have this scenario of somebody reach out to me to say, hey, my hub, I can't claim it, because I just bought this from a neighbor and he's lying and try to claim it. Likely the scenario is they would probably contact us to say, I'm trying to claim this node, it says I can't, and we kind of know who it is, at least by email address or something. We have yet to have that issue.
Never been to Southern Michigan.
Yeah, that's a good question.
How long does it take to get a system, say I want it today, how long?
Yeah, these systems are very much in stock, and we got it shipped out next week. Yep.
So if one of the nodes fails, does it just drop off the system and you get an alert that says, it's gone?
As far as it just doesn't report.
Yeah, that's the hallmark of the whole system, is there's gotta be, if you've got 6 main lines, you got 2, 3, 4 nodes out there, and one of them drops off.
Yep.
You get some type of indication fairly quick, either you're gonna lose some of this data that would have been collecting, or it's just gonna give you a blank screen.
Yeah, so within the web app, it basically grays out. I think I have a picture of it. That's probably hard to read. So right here in the top, it's probably hard to read. This says 2 minutes ago, 7 minutes ago, 12 minutes ago. If a node stops communicating, it'll say 1 hour ago, a day ago. So and then instead of this being green, like for us, it's like, how do you visually indicate a good status or a bad? Today we use green and red. We're probably gonna change it to blue and red just for colorblind folks. But then I'll turn gray. So hey, don't focus on me because you turned me off, or I'm having issues. So that's how you know if it's talking or not. Same thing on the map. The map will also turn that line gray if it's offline. That's not something most times it's online talking fine, but that's how we kind of indicate that it's offline.
Can you add the relay feature down the line if you want to?
Yeah, you sure can. You can add both the relay feature is easy. Every single hub has the port on it. You just plug the relay module in to add that at any point in the future you want. It's just order the device, same exact cost, basically $100 for the relay box. We have the relay box or a power strip. The power strip is, if you have a guzzler pump, it's a pretty good, no hassle to wire it in. You just plug it into a power strip, and we just turn outlets on and off on that power strip. The ability to talk to nodes, you can order without. If you think you're going to add nodes in the future, it's just easier, because that's one you do have to ship back to us for us to add the radio and the antenna to it. So it's most guys are adding, if they think they're going to add nodes in the future, it's only $100 extra to order it up front, and just don't have nodes that first year, add nodes in the future.
What's your customer support look like?
Yeah, good question. We do have 1 or 2 other developers as well that I'm onboarding as well for both feature development and helping out with customer support. Primarily, we only grow as a company if we provide excellent customer service. Most times you're talking to me directly with any questions, issues. Make myself, as a sugar maker myself, I do strive to provide the customer service that I as a sugar maker would expect. Go on any of the Facebook groups, we got a pretty good testimonial out there about the level of customer service we provide.
How many nodes can you run off one hub?
We have tested up to 50.
50?
Yeah.
50 lines or 50?
50
boxes?
individual nodes, like 50 boxes. That's felt like the higher side of what most of our customers are doing. We do have several customers in the 30 to 35 nodes in a sugar bush, and that's throughout their whole sugar bush up to one hub. Probably a handful of customers that size. That's the area where, as we build up more capability, both 3 and 4 port nodes become more known in this industry. The level of customer service growing, both medium needs, the smaller producers, as well as call it mid-size producers that want more and more nodes in the system. Some of our customers, he has one of our largest customers he's got like 12 different sugar bushes. Some of them are 6,000 taps, others are I think 8,000, and he's got how many nodes total? Over 100 nodes between multiple different sugar bushes and 8 different sugar bushes. And those are every year it adds more nodes to one sugar bush.
It sounds like, it sounds like you guys are on your way to, developing a lot of different additions to it through your R&D. How does that look for people purchasing today, or
Yeah.
like this season? So
That's a great
is
question.
it gonna incorporate into what we're buying, like?
So
we're
for the
buying?
last 3-4 years, a lot of our focus was get the hardware right. Make sure the hardware is right. Once that's out there, it's a little bit harder to update. But if we get the hardware right, then we can keep adding new and new features to the web app. We actually can update the software remotely over the cellular network to the hub. But a lot of the analytics piece is all in the cloud, all in the web app. So we can easily add new features there.
It was time.
Yeah.
Yeah, I got maple, I'm trying to make sugar, and my